What could be done to seek convictions of police officers who commit murder of unarmed people, specifically African Americans? The issue at hand is the constant acquittals of police who harass and murder people who are unarmed and were not committing any kind of crime. There have been increasing media coverage of these killings, such as Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Michael Brown, and Tamir Rice. According to the journal by Michael Siegel, between 2013 and 2018, there were a total of 6,176 fatal police shootings in the United States. Of the 5,700 shootings in which the race of the victim was known, 1,565 involved Black victims, representing more than twice the proportion of Blacks in the overall population. Police have been murdering African Americans for decades and either not getting charged for the crime or being sentenced to a lesser charge. Recall the murder of Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was participating in a civil rights protest in Marion, Alabama on February the 18th, 1965. Protesters were raided by state troopers, and Jimmy and his family fled to a nearby cafe where he was fatally shot and killed by State Trooper James Bonner Fowler while trying to protect his mother and grandfather from being beaten. Afterwards, Fowler transferred to Birmingham, Alabama, and was promoted at his job. He was not charged with Jackson's murder until 42 years later in 2007. However, he was convicted of a lesser crime of manslaughter and was sentenced to 6 months in jail, but was freed after only serving 5 months. He was later investigated for the murder of another African American man, Nathan Johnson, which was during a traffic stop in 1966, but he died before the investigation was completed. Also, recall the murder of Eric Garner in New York, where the police officer, Daniel Pantaleo, put him in a chokehold and continued to choke him despite his pleas that he could not breathe. Although this entire incident was recorded, Pantaleo was never even charged, and in fact, he was given a pay raise of nearly 20%, even while placed on modified duty after Garner's death. According to an article by CBS News, in the Mesa, Arizona district, there was a case where Robert Johnson, who was beaten by police, and Gabriel Ramirez, who was choked by police while handcuffed, and Daniel Shaver, who begged police for his life in a hotel room before police fatally shot him. The officers involved in the Ramirez and Johnson cases were not charged with any crimes. Officer Philip Brailsford was fired and charged with murdering Daniel Shaver, but was acquitted after a 6-week trial. Some state legislatures, such as Connecticut, Maryland, New Mexico, New Jersey, South Carolina, Colorado, and Illinois, require police to wear body cameras. Cities introduced implicit bias training to the local police departments. Many made it mandatory, but have they been working? Many police officers have been known to cover their body cameras while committing illegal acts. There are some cities that decline to require their police departments to undergo implicit bias training. Some of the main cities are Montgomery, Los Angeles, Colorado Springs, Jacksonville, Miami, Chicago, Columbus, and Cleveland. The Mesa, Arizona Police Department claims that implicit training kills their morale. According to Kate Levine's article, currently, in order to prosecute a state police officer under federal law, the officer must willfully violate a person's civil rights. This high standard is, in part, a recognition that the federal government does not prosecute people for offenses such as homicide, long considered in the province of state prosecutors and courts. Levine feels that prosecuting police officers would not remedy the situation of cops killing people. It would only make matters worse because if cops were to go to prison, they would become institutionalized. Scholars would beg to differ because police should be held in a higher regard since they took an oath to protect and serve. And if they violate that oath, they should be convicted and sentenced the same as anyone else who commits the acts of murder. As a result of the brutal police killing of George Floyd, there was a bill introduced as the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act of 2021, or the H.R. 1280, which establishes a framework to prevent and remedy racial profiling by law enforcement at the federal, state, and local levels. It also limited the unnecessary use of force and restricted the use of no-knock warrants, chokeholds, and carotid holds. It has passed the House on March the 3rd, 2021. Unfortunately, this bill did not pass Congress as a whole. One could only hope to make some kind of progress in the future.